especially now, and I know you can relate to this, our industry is changing and evolving faster than any of us could have anticipated with hybrid. And how do you do hybrid, next level and then next level? And there's so much going on all the time around us. So I think where the biggest lesson for me constantly, and the universe keeps like throwing this in my face all the time, is you have to keep up or you're going to be kept out. And having to constantly challenge not only myself, but my team in production and like creative and writing and all of that. Like, how do we become better? And how do we not just become better, but then share that with our industry? So that's something that is, especially over the past 2 years, which is why I look like I haven't slept in 2 years, because I actually haven't, is because of that, right? It's like that whole mentality of like, we have got to keep up, because if you don't, you're going to be left out, especially as small businesses.
Today's episode, because we've got a lot of things to cover. I have an amazing guest that I can't wait to introduce. If you want to feel empowered and motivated to do even greater things and bigger things that you've done before, we're going to discuss hybrid event productions. We're going to discuss content creation and storytelling and leadership lessons as a woman in a pretty male dominated world as it is, and how emotional intelligence can really be used to your advantage in this world.
Welcome to Events Demystified podcast, where we explore and demystify the world of in-person, virtual, hybrid event AV production and technology by sharing insightful tips, tricks and tactics to make your events a success. This podcast is brought to you by Tree Fan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency. And your host is Anka Trifan, a technical event planner and producer with almost 2 decades of hands-on technical experience in event production.
Welcome to another episode of Events Demystified podcast, your one-stop shop for your tangible, technical, and planning advice for anyone in the events industry. I've got one of the best dressed in the industry woman in event production, Sarah Soliman, a powerhouse with a lot of passion for the meetings and the events industry that extends beyond her company. And that is her company, Soliman Productions. I can't wait to talk about all the things with her. With over a decade of experience in broadcast journalism and production, Sarah Soliman brings her producing and reporting experience into her own company, Soliman Productions, covering the meetings industry at large with a team of like-minded creative professionals, individuals that are equipped to respond to all your video and photographic requirements. Sarah hopes to continue inspiring and educating meeting professionals in all facets of their career through various initiatives she finds great passion in. And it would be my great pleasure to welcome our change maker, Sarah Soliman, to our episode today. Welcome to the show, Sarah. I am so delighted that I have you with me today. You have no idea. I remember when we first met at IMAX last year, and I was like, somebody please introduce me to Sarah.
You're so cute. I am so happy to be here, and your audience should know how patient you are with me, because we've had to reschedule this because of yours truly here twice. So 3rd time's a charm, and I'm so happy to finally be chatting with you on your podcast.
I am super excited about as well. I feel like we have so much to talk about because we have quite a few things in common. So everyone that's listening, hey, warm up your whatever morning lattes, afternoon coffee, whatever it is that you're consuming. And
or your wine. Or your wine.
Right? Exactly. Let's get started. Before we get, I guess, any further into our conversation, aside from the very well curated introduction into the About Me section of your website, which I have checked out, I want to know, honestly, who's Sarah Soliman behind closed doors and what brought her into this world of event productions?
Okay, well, Sarah Soliman behind closed doors is very much what you see in front of the door. So I am very much a what you see is what you get kind of gal. I have always been infatuated with media and production and just storytelling. And I remember growing up, I was very much that girl that would watch news anchors and reporters and hosts on, entertainment shows. And I was like, ooh, that looks fun. And they get to travel and they get to talk to people and learn about people and learn about so many different industries and things. And that's really where like my journey into our world and, production started. Outside of that, I am very much a family oriented person. I am extremely close with my parents. I've got a younger brother who I love and adore, and I just really pour and commit myself into my relationships. So whether it be friendships, personal relationships, professional relationships, that's just who I am as a person. So yeah, I mean, I am an open book. And I have shared my story and I've been very vulnerable on channels like social media and things like that. So yeah, what you see is what you get. I'm really not that exciting.
Well, let me just say this, let's just also add to all of that the fact that you are one of the best dressed event professionals that I know. And maybe it's like the Romanian in me, that cares for things like that. But I love your outfits. I'm like, oh, I need to know where she got that dress. Like, how can you have so many beautiful, wonderful looking dresses? That should be illegal.
You're so sweet. I should have added in my intro that I just did. I'm a shopaholic. I love fashion. I'm very much a girly girl. I've got more heels and stilettos and dresses, like you said, than I should probably ever own. But it's my thing, right? Like it makes me feel good. And today is cold in Florida, so I've got my fuzzy sweater on. But I've always been really into fashion, and this is something we can maybe talk about too at some point during this conversation. But as a woman in production and as a woman in business, I have always made it a point, and especially for young women, to just be true to who you are. And I've always been an advocate for being true to who I am through my fashion as well, which has caused some good and controversial conversations, especially in our industry for whatever reason. But it's who I am. And I just more so than just appreciating fashion and looking nice and all of those things, just I think where I want to inspire women is to just be true to themselves in how they appear and approach business and everything in between.
I love that. And honestly, to come to that place of accepting that you are this person who you are and you're not going to try to become somebody that you're not based on whatever expectations of somebody else's ideal of what a woman in production should look like. I love that because it's a journey to get to. I know it's been a journey for myself as well. And when one of the main complaints that I got from an AV vendor was that I dress better than them, that to me was like, yay.
Yeah.
I present and I dress better than anyone else on the crew is because I do. I care that I'm not your stinky tech guy. Right. I want to be presentable and I do choose my outfits carefully. Obviously it has to be something where it represents me, but it's also professional and whatever according to the etiquette of the event or whatever that might be. But here's one thing that I want to segue into because I feel like this has been a conversation that it was definitely like top of mind a few years back and not so much now, but it doesn't mean that it's not relevant and it should be top of mind. And that is related to your work that you're very well known for, which has been the Meetings To movement alongside one of our common friends, Courtney Stanley, which she's adorable. I love her. And that has really earned quite the recognition also on the cover of Meetings Today. And based on that alone, I can tell that you are pretty passionate about this topic. Do you want to go a little bit more into details and maybe explore some other passions that are worth mentioning when it comes to your personal and professional life?
Sure. Yeah. Any opportunity I can get to talk about Meetings To and sexual harassment preventative measures in our industry, I will gladly take. So you mentioned Courtney Stanley. She is one of my best friends. I love her so much. And the whole Meetings To movement really evolved after chapter conversations that Courtney and I had, very candid conversations about uncomfortable situations that we both had experienced as women growing up in this industry and continue to experience as women in this industry, along with other candid discussions that we were having with other friends, right? Like our circle of trust and influence in our space. And from there, we said, well, okay, we could either keep talking about it or we can try to do something about it.
I love that.
Yeah, and we put our brains together and came up with some very tangible, easy to do, hopefully takeaway items that event organizers can think about and implement and strategize around as part of their contingency plan to help in the effort of preventing sexual harassment moving forward at our live meetings. So it's been a fun journey for Courtney and I. It's been super fulfilling. We were doing a lot of presentations prior to COVID for both, local chapter, smaller events, but then also on larger stages like MPI World Education Congress. So it's been a journey that we've really enjoyed, having and sharing together. So that is something that I'm extremely passionate about. And then, what we were talking about, just inspiring not just women, but young people in our industry to just go for it. I think another area that I'm really passionate about is leadership positions. So I've had the privilege of serving and continue to serve currently on both a local chapter board of directors for MPI Greater Orlando here in my backyard in Orlando, Florida, but then also for the global board of trustees. So just encouraging people, regardless of your age, how much experience you have, apply, just pushing them to apply for positions that they may not feel they're ready for yet, because you never know when the answer is going to be yes and what you can actually bring to the table. So that's been another area of passion of mine that I've shared over the past couple of years too.
I love that. Now, piggybacking on this similar topic, how does a woman in event production advance and create opportunities and a clear path for herself in a pre-male dominated world? How do you feel that has been maybe the hardest obstacle or limitation that you had to overcome in our industry?
I've always had this mentality of not pigeonholing myself in a specific category. Yes, I'm a woman. Yes, I'm a minority woman in a male dominated space, which we're talking about, like production in particular.
Yeah.
But I approach every situation with confidence and just knowing that I am valuable to the conversation. I'm going to be valuable to whatever client I'm serving and I'm having a conversation with. And I think the misconception, and we were talking earlier about wearing dresses and things like that, like you show up to a production meeting in a dress, like that is not normal by any means, right? But that's okay. It's okay to not be normal. Like normal's boring. What's even better is when you show up as your true authentic self to these meetings and then, you see these like stares and they're like, what's this girl going to do? Like, what's this little girl going to bring to the table? And then you bring everything to the table. That is the best
Power
ever. That's power. And that's the best feeling ever, because now you're listening to this, not to anything else, right? And I've always tried to lead my business, lead my team, lead, whoever I'm mentoring with that mentality of, yes, you may be a minority. Yes, you may be a woman. Yes, you may have a lot of unfortunate societal disadvantages that you are working against. But if you present yourself with confidence and competence, then there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to feel insecure about or feel like you have to fight an uphill battle, because you don't. So I think if people just try to do your best and avoid the, again, societal stereotypes that are put on us as women, as whatever, and just go in and do what you do, then the rest is kind of going to take care of itself, right? Like people will trust you, they're going to like you. And when people like and trust you, what do? They work with you, they build a relationship with you, and that relationship just continues to evolve.
And what do you think was maybe for you one of the hardest obstacles just on a, personal, professional level that you had to overcome?
For me, my journey was a little interesting. I actually started my business after working for a different production company, and I received a lot of heat from some in the industry that would try to drag my name through the mud. And I get it. There's a level of fear and insecurity and whatever when anyone starts their own business, but just having to prove myself and who I am as a person, like my character was really tough. And also having to do that, I was in my mid to late 20s at the time, and, having to be the adult in the room, basically, and also turn the other cheek and not respond, the way that I would love to respond to a lot of the negativity and the false name accusations and things like that were happening around me. That was definitely the most challenging part of my career and building my personal brand, because I am very particular about my personal brand. And, anytime you hear your name dragged through the mud for any reason, and knowing that it's not true, the first thing you want to do is react, right? And just learning how to control those emotions and not react the way that you want to was a challenge. But in hindsight, just kind of biting your tongue and, again, just trucking forward with confidence and competence. Like, now it's like that stuff is old news, and I don't even reflect back on it because it's irrelevant now.
I love it. I feel like many of the stories that I get to hear from some of the women in event production are somewhat similar in the sense that their intentions are questioned, like they are there to reinvent the wheel or, totally break the status quo. And that is perceived very threatening. And then all those defenses come up, and I'm like, okay, what are we going to do to take Sarah down? And what are we going to do to take Anka down? I love your advice, to just keep doing what you're doing. Yes, some of those things are hurtful, but if we stop for every comment that it's negative and just comes our way and just try to attempt to fix things that they're out of your control, I just don't see how that energy is going to be paying off in the long term compared to just keep doing what you've been doing and pave your own path, if you may.
Yeah.
Now, here's one thing that I'm asking a lot of my guests, and that is, what do you feel that is one event-related lesson that the universe keeps putting in front of you that you might need to relearn or nail?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. Okay, so what is a lesson that is kind of reoccurring? That is a really good one. I think what I've learned as a small business owner, and a lesson that is continuous, is keeping up. So what I mean by that is, especially now, and I know you can relate to this, our industry is changing and evolving faster than any of us could have anticipated, with hybrid, and how do you do hybrid, next level and then next level. And there's so much going on all the time around us. So I think where the biggest lesson for me constantly, and the universe keeps throwing this in my face all the time, is you have to keep up or you're going to be kept out. And having to constantly challenge not only myself, but my team in production and creative and writing and all of that. How do we become better? And how do we not just become better, but then share that with our industry? So that's something that is, especially over the past 2 years, which is why I look like I haven't slept in 2 years, because I actually haven't. I have not gotten much sleep in 2 years, is because of that, right? It's that whole mentality of this is a lesson, we have got to keep up, because if you don't, you're going to be left out, especially as small businesses.
Absolutely. And I feel like I have exactly the same, I don't know if I would say pain or frustration, but it can definitely fall into that category at times, where I'm like, why do I need to learn all this graphics design and stuff? That's really not in my wheelhouse, but I must, because otherwise, how am I going to put my content out there in a way that is perceived and received? And I'm like, I need to learn how to do it. Oh, that's a completely separate area of expertise that I'm annoyed some days that I have to nail,
It's so true. I mean, no one wants to do what's uncomfortable. It's no one wakes up and they're like, wow, what am I going to do today that is not going to be fun for me to learn? That is not a natural human instinct. But if you want to be great, if you want to go to that next level, if you want to stay relevant and, like I said, keep up, then you have to challenge yourself to do these things, and you have to learn skills that are not, your norm. I mean, I had to learn years ago how to edit. I never thought that I would want to edit anything or even care to edit, but it's no, I've had to, because there's been times where you have to roll your sleeves up and do it yourself,
Absolutely. I'm a sound engineer. So for me, video editing and video production was the farthest thing away from my mind. And then here comes COVID. I don't even know what keyframes are, beginning of COVID. And now I'm producing video after video after video. Are my skills up to here? No, but I'm evolving, right? But
totally.
I'm this is a death by 1,000 paper cuts.
100%, which is why we both have not slept in 2 years. But you know what?
Exactly.
Good for you. And I commend you for doing that. And I think it's awesome that you're just doing what you have to do. And here's the thing, you don't even have to do that. Like, you're choosing to do that. You know, it's a choice that you're making every day. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring for me. It's inspiring for people, you know, watching and listening. It's exactly how you grow and you build and you develop as not only an individual, but as a business. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. That growth mindset is really what I feel like we all must have as business owners, small business owners, event professionals, if we're really going to make it to the other side, whatever the other side is. Here's another topic that I'm so passionate about because I love storytelling. I love stories. I think people connect with stories the most. Stories have this power to make, you know, ideas stick in the minds of listeners and engage our brain and even alter how we think and feel about certain things, certain products, certain ideas. And ultimately, stories do have the power to persuade us into action. And I know that you're just as passionate about it. You've basically made a business that is at the center of it all. Storytelling is that nuclear thing that keeps things going. Now, effective storytelling, I feel like, doesn't just amuse or entertain, persuade. So I would love to hear some of your advice, as in, how can you nail the story of an organization or a brand? How can you make them realize, or maybe give some tips on how they could connect with their audience or their stakeholders and gain maximum impact by using storytelling as the avenue?
Great question. Emotion. I always lead with emotion. I think we historically in production, and because of, you know, PR and things like that, have not done a good job at telling the story through your heart, right? Like, usually you tell a story through like business and, you know, what's politically correct and what's all of these things. But I think times have changed and people and organizations are starting to understand that if you don't lead with this, and you don't tell the story with your heart, then you're going to lose your audience. And we see that in how commercials are being told now. Like, for example, take like the commercials during the Olympics this past year. I mean, all emotion driven, right? They're all human impact stories. So when we look at how those stories are told and we bring that into our industry, like, so let's say we're talking to associations, right? Associations are made of people. They're member-based organizations. Your members have impact stories that should be told and should be told with emotion first. So finding those people that make up your member base to ask them questions like, how have we as an association changed your life? You'd be surprised at some of the emotion that you can drive out of that. I can give you a really good example. We were in San Francisco this past December for an in-person meeting. Yay. And
I know. It's like,
yeah,
what? Did I hear that?
I know.
Well?
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And this is a technology group. They're in the semiconductor space. Okay. And we were there to help, like, they're struggling, as everyone is, every industry, with workforce development. So our team was there, boots on the ground, capturing stories of professionals that are in this industry to help generate and recruit the next generation into this space. Okay. Into that industry. And I can't tell you how many tears were shed. And I'm talking like from men, like manly men that like walk in and they're all, you know, hey, like, you know, big egos and CEOs of this and that and whatever, like C-suite people. And once they sit down and you just have a conversation with them and you ask them the right questions, they break down. And that is what drives a good story, because now you've tied your organization to this beautiful story that is so relatable because it's vulnerable, raw, and real to that next person, right? And that to me is what makes a compelling story versus a, you know, we're a cool organization, you should join. Well, great. Like, tell me why, and tell me why through that emotion. So I hope I answered your question, but that really is like my biggest thing. And when I produce, you know, here internally, and when I am working with my team, I'm always like, I need more impact. I need more. And I drive them crazy because I have like my own language and I talk with my hands a lot. So I'm like, I need more oomph. I need more this, you know, and they're like, got it. I think I understand what you're saying. But like, what I mean by that is like, make me cry. When I watch this, I want to feel something, right? So that's really what makes a good story.
I love it. I feel like that's how I talk to my husband when I'm asking him to redo my podcast original track that he's actually created. I'm like, okay, last year sounded like this. This year I needed to sound like and of course making all this, sounds like when you go to the mechanic and you try to explain to them what type of a sound your car makes, and he's like, so I think what you're trying to tell me is that you want it to sound more trance and EDM instead of like rock style. I'm like, yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly it. He's a smart husband. But that's the thing. It's like, you know what you want because you know what makes you feel something. Like I know when I'm sitting in a movie theater and there's like surround sound and there, you see a trailer for an upcoming movie, like
it's
what
gonna be
kind
good.
of,
or it's gonna be like, I think I end up in the wrong theater.
Exactly. Like, because of the music that they use, because of the clips that they decided to use from the full length movie, like, what's going to drive you to go see that movie, right? So that's what should be done in every single production piece that you're producing.
I feel like this topic alone could be a completely separate episode because I'm very passionate, especially as we move it back to in person, how much not just the food that we taste, the ambiance, but the lighting in the room creates that sense of feeling welcome, feeling like you belong, feeling like you want to be there, using that intentionally. There's actually, I think Tahira and Dean, she's super big on intentional event design that it uses all senses to create this experience. But again, totally a different topic for another time because I feel like we were just going to go for 3 hours if we keep talking about that. Here's one thing that I guess I want to ask you then. Do you have maybe your top 3 best tips to produce powerful content with a high marketing value that you could share with the audience, aside from emotion? Obviously, that's at the center of it all.
Yeah. I mean, outside of emotion, I would say definitely work with a professional person. And what I mean by that is like a producer, someone who understands what it takes, right, to get you to that final product that you're looking for. So, because once you have a producer, and you know this, Anka, you're familiar with how this goes. Once you have a producer, you know that person is going to then lead the whole production journey and the storytelling journey. So that would be tip number 1. I think tip number 2 is I'm a stickler for audio. Like I need good audio. I mean, I hate doing like this because this is like, you hear probably my jewelry or whatever you hear. Like,
no, I can hear you fine. So if we had a problem, it would be like, Sarah, I'm going to fix that.
Because you're a production person and you can relate and understand. That's awesome. So, but like good audio is important. I can't tell you how many videos I've watched where it's like you're using a cell phone and you're capturing someone's audio in a busy show floor. And that's not a testimonial. That's not going to make the cut, or at least it shouldn't, because it's annoying to have to hear through all that noise.
The type of microphone that you use, that if it's not so directed to the person like a boom mic, you can hear the whole room. I can tell how large that room is based on like what I'm hearing.
Good audio is key because you don't want to lose the distraction, or you don't want people to get distracted from other components other than like what's being shared. And then I would say music. Music is so important in like, how frustrating is it when you're watching, again, a commercial or something, you're like, that was weird music that they used with that kind of commercial. Like that should have been like a little bit more somber or a little bit more upbeat, or, maybe there should have been like a rock sound to it. Do a better job at the music selection prior to releasing a final video. But again, that kind of leads to number 1, right? Number 1, which is work with a producer, because the producer understands the emotion, understands the story that you're trying to tell and the message that you're trying to drive home. And then they can pick and choose music based on what your final product is. Yeah, those would be my tips.
Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, event while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. Find out how 3Fun Events can plan and produce your event become memorable. Go to 3funevents.com. Awesome. Okay, we're getting into the rapid fire segment. So I'm going to ask you a round of rapid questions. Answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. And it's all event related, maybe, maybe not.
Oh no. Okay, I'm nervous.
So let's see. The perfect hybrid event is
FOMO for in-person and virtual audiences.
what makes a virtual event iconic?
Engagement.
The most entertaining virtual hybrid, real life event has to have
Music.
the best all-in-one event platform you've worked with is and why?
I don't want to be biased, but I feel like mine. I don't want to go into why, but just you can skip.
You can just give it just the platform and maybe one reason.
Okay, so our platform, because it's fully customizable, and I don't mean just by like colors and branding and stuff, but like what it can actually do from like a functionality standpoint.
What is one piece of advice that you were given that was so shitty that you would never give it to somebody else? Never wear stilettos on a setup.
to tone down would be the worst advice.
What is one thing that people often tend to get wrong about you?
That I am stuck up. They just judge me from
appearances.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things about you, Sarah, is that you definitely come up very confident. There's such a friendliness that comes with that as well. I love that because if I were to just, we are many times judged and I would have had to muster the courage to go and say hi just based on the fact that you do come across as confident. And, I've done my years in the industry to know where I stand and where I'm at. Without the friendliness that comes with your whole aura, it would be really hard to just be like, man, she's really well dressed. She's so pretty. She's so well put together and successful. It would be hard, honestly, to come up and be like, hi.
That is a very, very, very sweet compliment. I appreciate that so much. It's so silly. I'm honestly the biggest nerd and dork ever. And you can ask anyone on my team or anyone in my circle. It's so weird for me when people like just judge that way. Anyway, that's like
I totally know what you mean because I'm the same way. Like I'm such a nerdy nerd and also with a side of awkwardness. Like, it's like totally like out there and I could care less. But here's another thing that I was like really wanted to bring it up because we were talking about this pre-show, and that was, how as women we come on video and we feel like we have to look somewhat presentable. Obviously, I didn't just wake up this way. I wish I did, and then I wouldn't have to spend whatever amount of time that it takes to get here. However, I feel like for a lot of guests, male counterparts that I get to interview, they're like, literally, I just woke up and this is how I look. Do you feel like this expectation of us to be ready, like we put some effort into it, is in our advantage or in our disadvantage?
Disadvantage, because there are days where I don't want to put makeup on. Let's be real. We all have those days as women where it's like, gosh, I'm just tired. And you know what? I'm not going to show up to work in my pajamas. But like today, I'm dressed down today. Like it's cold here in Florida. Yes, it's like 40 degrees today. And I got out of bed and I'm like, I don't want to be super dressed up. But I knew that I had this. So I'm like, okay, let me put makeup on. If it was up to me, I wouldn't have worn makeup today. I would have just showed up to work in my outfit and that's it. So
100%. Because I'm the same way. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm like, do I have any video recordings today? Exactly. Do I have to actually do my face or can I just be me? It's not like I overdo it, but it's like look presentable enough to be on video so I don't go in my editing and regret that I even recorded that face.
Well, and here's the thing, Anka, and that's so real, but here's the thing. If you and I showed up today and didn't put makeup on, right? You can't really see our outfits, so that doesn't matter as much. But if we didn't put makeup on, that would have been the topic of conversation. And that would have been oh my gosh, is like Anka not wearing makeup? Is Sarah not wearing any makeup? Oh, she looks tired.
She did not try at all.
And it's like, you know what? Maybe I didn't want to try today because I'm tired and I have a million things to do. And maybe I didn't sleep well last night. Like whatever, maybe I'm not feeling well, like whatever it is. So I think it's unfortunate. And I think it is a disadvantage for women. And it's sad. I'm all for showing up and being presentable, which is why we do what we do. But it isn't always fun.
My little one woke up today. She's sick. She's not going to go to daycare. I'm going to have to take care of her. And I'm like, the last thing I want is spend time on me right now. But I kind of sort of have to, feel like there has to be more normalizing to happen where, hey, some days you're going to see me really well done. And some days you might not see that version of me. And yet it's still me. That doesn't make me any less capable or smart or pretty.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's unfortunate that we as women put a lot of pressure on ourselves and each other. And I don't think men really care, to be honest. I think we've created this cycle just of craziness within our women's community, to be quite honest, because I guarantee you most men would not even notice whether you're wearing makeup or not, because they just don't notice those things.
Yeah,
but women do, right? So it's definitely a disadvantage. And I think most women watching this could probably relate.
One fun side story here is my husband didn't notice one day that I bought a new sofa, and it was in the middle of the living room for about 3 days before he actually realized that there is a sofa in the living room. That's the level of how did you not realize? I mean, I'm pretty sure you were also sitting on it at one point.
Right. You're this is a whole new color couch. How do you not know that there's something different in our home? Men. They're very simple creatures. And sometimes I wish my brain operated that way.
I know. I'm like, man, I wish I didn't notice so many things. Wouldn't that be so much easier of a life? Hey, last question, Sarah. How do you keep yourself healthy in the best mindset and shape possible?
I love working out. So I make it a point to wake up earlier or after work. So today, for example, at 6:30, I've got my Pilates class, so I make it a point to really commit to my physical fitness. For me, it happens to just be very therapeutic and puts me in a better mindset. It gives me more energy. I just feel good about myself when I work out, when I feel good. My diet is not perfect by any means. I love me some Taco Bell and I love me some Big Macs, not gonna lie. But, I try to keep a balance with my diet.
Or very late tacos, somebody had someone last night. I don't know who.
Yeah. I wonder who. Yes, but exactly, right? So I'm not perfect by any means, but I think for me, physical fitness and all music, I love music. So even as I'm writing proposals and stuff, just a fun fact about me, I have my earbuds in, I've got my Spotify going, and I just listen to music throughout the day. It's just calming and it makes me feel good. Again, I'm a storyteller. So the stories through music and all of that are relatable. And so those two things I think, are probably my outlets. And then of course, just friends and, just my social circle. I'm very social. I don't like to keep things internal. I like to communicate things out that are bothering me. And if I'm not feeling like I'm in the best mental state, I recognize that and I talk to someone about it. I don't just internalize it. Especially after these 2 years, it's been tough for all of us, right? So talking about things has been extremely important. So yeah, those are my go-tos.
I love it. I think fitness has saved me a lot of therapy money the last 2 years too. So
Amen.
I'm very grateful for it. Okay, I guess that wasn't really truly the last question. The last question is, what's one piece of advice you have for event professionals seeking to position themselves, maybe better position themselves or advance or grow in this world of events that we're living through, that we're okay, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. What are we talking about 6 months from now?
I would say kind of like what we were talking about earlier, keep up and don't get too comfortable in your position, regardless of what that is, whether you're in hotels, an event planner and decor and AV, whatever it is, just always learn and stay in the know of what's going on and what events are doing things really well, and study that behavior, study those partners, study what people are doing and keep up with it. That way you are nimble in the skill sets that you offer. I think we've all learned that we have to be nimble, right? We've got to know how to do a little bit of everything in order to survive in this current landscape. Will it be like this forever? I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller, but based on the trajectory of where things are going as events continue to evolve into more, both online, in person, everything in between, you just have to be nimble, and you always have to present yourself as an asset to any company that you work for, whether you're an independent contractor or you own your own business, or you are an employee of an organization. You always have to be an asset and know how to do a lot more than what you are hired to do. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that you understand your surroundings and what people are doing to evolve in the craft and keep up with that. That would be my piece of advice for people right now. And also, I think another piece of advice is communicate what you're good at. It's not going to do you any good if you just keep that to yourself. Especially as women, we don't do a good job at communicating and telling people, hey, I can do this. I'm really good at that. Like
and advocating for ourselves.
Yeah. Put me in, coach. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to let you down. So that would be my advice.
I love this idea of being nimble. I think for the longest time in my career, because I was very much specialized to be a sound engineer, this idea of being called a generalist, like a nimble generalist, really bothered me. But then I had to take on so many different hats and roles and learn so many different things that at the end of the day, I'm like, man, I am that at this point. And that is not a bad thing. That is actually a good thing. But in my mind, for the longest time was more like that's like a few grades lower than, where I'm at right now as a single focus expert in this space. But now we can't say that anymore because we have to know a little bit about everything, especially when we're put in positions where it requires us to know event platforms. It requires us to know event production. It requires us to know a little bit of video, a little bit of sound, a little bit of graphic creation, a little bit of everything, right? It's definitely a great advice. Everyone is listening. You better put it down. Nimble is a new world that you're just gonna learn today.
Yep.
And it's what is gonna keep us floating and alive. Well, thank you so much for all your insightful tips, Sarah. Thank you for everything that you shared today. Where can our audience find you if they would like to learn more about you and your company?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Anka. This was so much fun, and I love getting to know you more and catching up. So I use LinkedIn quite often. So LinkedIn, just Sarah Soliman. Hopefully I'll pop up for you that way. And then Instagram is my next go-to. And my Instagram handle is Sarah Marie Soliman. And then, of course, website is solimanproductions.com. And definitely encourage you to reach out to me on social media. And if you want to learn more about what we do, check out our website.
Thank you so much. Okay, friends, this was it for today's episode. Thank you for hanging with us, and stay tuned for what's coming up next.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review it, rate it, and share it with other event professionals that could benefit from it. Connect with us on social at Events Demystified Podcast. We would love to hear from you and what you're up to. If you'd like to learn more about Tree Fan Event services and find out if we're a good fit in supporting your event, can we help your event be successful with a 20-minute free consultation? Link in the episode's notes. Thanks for tuning in.